Hello everyone, my name is Abhishek and welcome back to my channel. Today is episode 13 of Azure Zero to Hero series, and in this video we will explore Azure DevOps. So this video is part 1 or introduction to Azure DevOps because we have follow-up videos where we will learn different services of Azure DevOps in detail using practicals and projects. But in today's video, we will understand the overview of Azure DevOps. What exactly is Azure DevOps? Why should someone learn Azure DevOps? What are the different services that are offered as part of the Azure DevOps platform? Not just that, I'll also explain you how can Azure DevOps improve your software development lifecycle process. So it's going to be very informative video and also very interesting. So please try to watch it till the end. So let's start with understanding what exactly is Azure DevOps. So I'll explain this in a very simple way. Azure DevOps is basically a platform that is developed by Microsoft. And this platform is a collection of services which are used by DevOps engineers. And using this platform and services, DevOps engineers will improve the software development lifecycle process. And when the software development lifecycle process is improved, obviously the time and the effort that is taken to ship a new version of the application or a new bug fix or a feature will be reduced. Because DevOps engineers have used this platform and the services to automate a lot of things in the software development lifecycle. This is something that DevOps engineers usually also do, right? So if you try to understand what exactly is DevOps. So DevOps is basically a culture, and using this culture, DevOps engineers participate in various stages of software development lifecycle. And the end goal, by participating in various stages of software development lifecycle, automating the manual activities, reducing the manual activities as much as possible. And by doing this, DevOps engineers reduce the time taken to ship the applications. So if without DevOps, the time taken to deliver a bug fix or the time taken to deliver a feature to the customers, if it was taking, let's say, 3 months, by implementing DevOps in the same organization, DevOps engineers can automate and reduce the manual efforts as part of the software development lifecycle and bring this time to maybe 1 month. Abhishek, I'm beginner. I don't even understand what is software development lifecycle. Don't worry, I'll simplify this. So every organization has or goes through the software development lifecycle process. Let's take an example. Let's say iOS want to release their new version, and in this new version there is a feature. And let's say a particular project team is working on this feature. What the project team has to do is the project team has to go through bunch of phases. First thing is they cannot directly start writing the feature, right? So the project team who is working on this iOS feature, to get this feature out and to deliver this feature to the customers or the users, there are multiple stages that are involved. Number 1 is the planning stage, right? So first, the development team or the project team should sit down and understand, like they have to plan how much time this is going to take, how should we actually do this, how many number of people are going to be involved. High level planning has to be done. Then the design phase. So in the planning stage, usually the product owner, business analyst, all of these people, they will approach the project team and they try to explain the project team about the requirements of this new feature. So this feature has to look in this way, etc., etc. Then comes the design phase where the project team, now we are not talking about the management or we are not talking about the product owner. Basically, the development team, QE team, all of them sit together and work on the design of the product, where probably project team will be working on the HLD, LLD, etc. Then there is the development stage where the actual development takes place. Then there is the testing phase. Number 5 is deployment. And then finally you maintain the ones that is released or some kind of monitoring. So these are the primary stages that are involved in software development lifecycle. And if each of these stages, okay, let's assume if organization is performing all of these stages at their own pace, manually without any automation included, then I was talking about this time frame of 3 months. Whereas if DevOps is adopted by this organization, if the organization that is releasing the versions of iOS, if they use or adopt the DevOps practices, then DevOps engineers get involved in all of these phases. And what DevOps engineers does is wherever there is manual activity as part of this software development lifecycle process, DevOps engineers try to automate the manual efforts in the software development lifecycle. I'll give you one example. Let's say the design is done and developers have worked on the development piece. Now, if the process of the testing changes is happening manually and the process of deploying these changes is happening manually, and of course, developer does not just end up writing one version. Initially, developer writes one version and then forwards it to the testing. Then again, tester might not be satisfied. So developer writes another version, and then deployment might also take place multiple times. So if each and every time, if these things are taking place manually, then the software development lifecycle or the process of releasing this patch will take a lot of time. So this is where DevOps engineers involve automation, some things like CI/CD pipelines, or the infrastructure required for the development, testing, and deployment using IAC concepts. They bring in Terraform. And for the deployment, DevOps engineers use effective platforms like Kubernetes, right? So these are some of the things that DevOps engineers work on and improve the process. Now, in each organization, DevOps engineers have their own way of implementing these automations. That is, some people write these CI/CD pipelines using GitHub Actions. Some people might use Jenkins. Some people might use GitLab. So similarly, if you are using Azure DevOps, then Microsoft has launched a platform called Azure DevOps, where Microsoft says that, instead of involving different softwares at each place and maintaining these softwares, like if you are using Jenkins for CI/CD process, then you have to maintain Jenkins. Or if you're using GitLab, then you have to continuously upgrade the version of GitLab. Or let's say you're using Terraform, then you have to write your Terraform scripts and maintain the Terraform instances. Kubernetes similarly. So Azure DevOps said, okay, we will be writing a platform, and this platform is called as Azure DevOps, where this platform will have a lot of services and DevOps engineers can use these services. So DevOps engineers were anyways doing all of these things, but with Azure DevOps, the process has become even better because everything is now at one place. For everything that you see here, it can be planning, it can be design, development, testing, deployment. Azure DevOps has services for all of them. Let's go to the Azure DevOps platform, create an account, and see how each of these actions are supported by Azure DevOps services. So just search for Azure DevOps, click on the first link that you see, Azure DevOps services. And one thing that I would recommend is go with start free with GitHub. I did the same suggestion or recommendation when we started learning Azure as well, because we can maintain the same thing. We can use the same GitHub account for Azure as well as Azure DevOps. There will not be any discrepancies. So I'll use start free with GitHub. If you're not using GitHub, at least try to use the same subscription for both Azure and Azure DevOps. So now this is my Azure DevOps landing page. I have created an account. And the first thing that I would see is enter the project name. So the same example that I was talking about, right? So if iOS is a project, they will go through all of these stages. So let's say instead of iOS, we are working for an organization called Nike. And let me call this project as Nike Sales. Sales project for Nike organization. Do you want to keep it public or private? Obviously, because this is within the organization, we would like to keep it private. So create project. And once you create this project, now you will see the services of Azure that we were talking about. So towards the left side, we have boards, we have repos, we have pipelines, test plans, artifacts. Let's try to understand each of these services. The first one that we have is boards. So boards fall into the planning category, where boards are something like Jira boards. If you are aware of Jira, if you're not aware of Jira, it's okay. So you can create a new board, and within your organization, using these boards, we can discuss about the planning. We can discuss and split the items, the work items into sprints, into backlog. I've discussed this very detailed in one of my videos. I'll put the link in the description, as well as you will see here on the screen. So you can go through that video where I've explained it very clearly through Jira, and it's the same process in Azure DevOps as well. But basically, this boards is used for the planning phase. Then we have repositories where developers can store their source code, or even DevOps engineers can store their Terraform scripts, or DevOps engineers can store their Kubernetes manifests, Ansible playbooks, whatever it is. Then there is pipelines, which typically falls into the category of CI/CD, continuous integration and continuous development, which is used for pacing up the development, testing, and the deployment processes, right? So using CI/CD, what we can do, as soon as the developer creates a change and pushes that change to the repository, then the CI/CD can pitch in, and using CI/CD, we can automate the deployment and the testing processes. Then there is test plans, where QE engineers or test engineers can use this particular service, and instead of using some things like ALM, or instead of using any test plan tools, QE engineers can use this particular service here, and they can create the test plans, track the progress of the tests, and also run some tests from here. Then there is artifacts. So artifacts is typically used for storing the outcomes of CI/CD. Let's say if I'm running a CI/CD pipeline for Java application. So either I can store the artifacts here for the jar files or the var files, whatever is the outcome of my Java application. Typically the binaries or any kind of artifacts that we want to store. So artifacts are nothing but the outcomes of our CI/CD. So we have boards, then repos, pipelines, test plans, and finally artifacts. So the software development lifecycle, as I've explained, first starts with the planning phase, and boards can be used for the planning, design, and the analysis phases, where the product owner, scrum master, development team, QE team, everyone can work on the planning of a particular feature or planning of the epics if you are aware of the agile process. If you don't know, then please refer to the link in the description where I've explained everything. Now, once there is a proper idea of the planning, then developers will start writing the code for the plan that is created for the feature that they want to ship. And to store these source code, you need a repository, because there has to be a version control system. So that is where repos comes into picture as a version control system, where the source code is actually stored. Now developer continuously keeps updating the source code, with version 1, version 2, version 3, version 4. And finally, there will be a version where developer is satisfied or developer wants to trigger some kind of automation on every version that developer is committing to the repository. That is where pipelines come into picture. Let's say developer commits version 1 and developer wants to verify if version 1 is the right fix or not, or the right feature or not. So immediately, as soon as the developer commits this version 1 to VCS or the version control system, there will be a pipeline, which is the CI/CD pipeline, which is done by this pipeline service. Developers, DevOps engineers can use this service and trigger some CI/CD pipelines. And as part of this CI/CD pipelines, there will be a lot of stages. And one of the stages is the test automation. And for this test automation, to create the test automation, to create the test for this feature, QA engineers will use the service called test plans, where just like how we have designed the solution or designed the HLD and LLD for the development phase, similarly, test engineers will also use this test plans to create some kind of planning for the test. How should the test look like? What kind of cases have to be covered in the test, right? So once the test planning is done, QA engineers will come with automation tests. And this automation test will be one of the stage of the CI/CD pipelines. And finally, once the CI/CD pipeline is done, then there have to be a there has to be a deployment, which is also taken care by one of the stages of this CI/CD pipelines. So this pipeline is taking care of a lot of things. Once developer commits the code to the version control system or Azure repos, this Azure repos also support GitHub or other version control systems. We'll go there later. But right now, once developer commits the changes to the version control system, the pipelines comes into picture. And in this pipelines, the CI/CD pipeline triggers a lot of stages. One of the stage is test automation. And similarly, one stage is deployment. Now, once deployment is done, if you want to store the outputs, outcome, or artifacts of the deployment, that can be stored in the Azure artifacts. So this is how Azure DevOps provides services for each stages of software development lifecycle and improves this particular process. Now, even without using this Azure DevOps platform, DevOps engineers can definitely achieve this, but DevOps engineers have to do it through some scripts or through some external solutions, such as combination of, let's say, Jenkins plus Argo CD plus Jira, right? And to store the artifacts, probably some Nexus or JFrog Artifactory. And to store the test plans, probably they will be using some ALM or some other sources. But using Azure DevOps, now everything is at one place. That's the only difference. This is a platform which provides a solutions, which is a centralized solution for all the problems of software development lifecycle. So that's the video for today. And in future videos, we will learn more about the Azure DevOps services. We will implement CI solution. We will implement CD solution. And please definitely watch the Jira video that I was talking about. That is exactly same as Azure boards. Instead of repeating the same things again in the video, I would rather put the link in the description. If you understand that, you have understood Azure boards concept, because it is exactly the same thing. Thank you so much for watching the video. See you all in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.